Hey everyone, you're watching a note-taking system video. One of my big goals throughout high school has been to develop a note-taking system that meets the best note-taking system criteria. So I've decided that it's got to be aesthetic, efficient, organized, and adaptable. And after a lot of modification and thinking to make the system absolutely perfect in order to meet those criteria, I've settled on this Mistral method, and I'm super proud of it. I can pretty much say it's a good system because I've been using the same one for about 2 years now for all of my subjects, and it works perfectly. So I'm really happy with how it's turned out. So here's what I'll cover in case you want to skip to a certain part. I'll talk a bit about some extra tips that you can incorporate into your notes depending on the subject. And finally, to wrap it up, I'll flip through some of my old class binders and current class binders where I use handwritten notes so that you can see it in action and how I organize all of the notes together for one course. So let's get started. So you've already seen how I use sticky notes in my notes to make certain things stand out. Next is try not to have too many colors. I know this looks like a lot of colors, but when I was in grade 10 and I did history, and I was just starting out with figuring out this note-taking system, my notes were horrific. And I mean, for one thing, the actual colors don't go well together. But you'll see I used green, light green, dark green, pink, purple, yellow, and it's just, oh my goodness, overwhelming. This is actually another idea when it comes to using sticky notes. I won't remove it. If there's something that you want to draw that you think you might mess up, do it on a sticky note and then put it in. And that way, if you do mess it up, you can always just redo it. My next tip is in-class problems. So if your teacher gives you problems to print out, you can always cut them out and stick them on top of where you wrote the answers. So this is really cool. This is how I did it for these questions in history in grade 10. I wrote out the questions, or I printed them out. I think the teacher gave us these ones. And then underneath are all of my answers. And this is really cool because you can test yourself on these questions and your answers are below. Oh, and then if your questions aren't printed out, you can just do it like this, how I did here with the blue pen and then with black pen underneath for your answers. You can always use pencil as well if you think your answers might be wrong. I personally like to use pen anyways because honestly, even when I use pencil, I won't erase it. I'll just make the corrections in red pen so that I know what my mistakes were and I don't make them again. And when I'm studying, I can see what they were. So whatever you want to do, you can do. And finally, just don't worry about the rules. Focus on making sure your system is clear. So you're making sure your notes are clear. Don't worry so much about sticking to the system perfectly. And finally, to wrap it up, I'm going to flip through some of my class binders where I use handwritten notes, and I'll show you how to organize all of the notes for a course. For politics, the notes that I take are typed. So that's a slightly different system, but it's pretty much the same idea. I still add in notes with my pens and highlight as well. And then in order to organize everything, I print it out and I fill in an index. I haven't filled in this index yet because I just haven't had the chance to, but you can see in my econ notes, my index is filled in. And you can find this index on my blog. I'll link it in the description below so that you can print it out for yourself. For economics, I use loose graph paper. My teacher often gives us handouts that are kind of messy, but that's okay. And so that way I get to reorganize them easily. I always make sure I put the date on the top of all of my handouts. It's been really hard to get into the habit of doing this because it's just not something I think about regularly, but it helps so much when I'm studying or when a friend asks me for notes they missed on a particular day. And then for English, I actually have a binder as well. So this English literature notebook, I use it for lecture notes and for brainstorming for essays and things like that so that I keep everything in one place and I can still reorder them. In my binder is where I keep all my typed items, and I also keep all of the drafts of my essays in paper wallets. I don't know what they're called, by the way. My grade 4 teacher was from England and she called them paper wallets, and I don't know, that's just kind of stuck with me, but that's a side note. So that's how I do that, and then these are a separate thing. is that your backpack might get a little bit heavy with all of these printed papers and binders and things. So I have a few solutions for that. So my bag is especially heavy because I carry my laptop as well, since I type my notes too. This is something I have to figure out how I'm going to do for university, but for now it's not that bad, so I work with it. One option is to move things out of a temporary binder and into your real, for example, economics binder as the year progresses, because you might not actually use the information or the notes that you took at the very beginning of the year. Another option is to have your first 2 subjects in one binder. So this is what I do since I have 4 courses. I have 2 binders. This one is for my 3rd and 4th period, and then I have another one for my 1st and 2nd period. And if you do this, you can actually leave one of them in your locker and get it at lunch when you transition to your 3rd and 4th periods. This doesn't really work for me, so I don't do it because I'd have to go back and get it after school, and sometimes I would end up forgetting. And then in terms of minimizing your weight, the weight of your bag, you can also get as many textbooks online as possible. For science, which is another subject you might want to handwrite your notes for, you would probably be best also keeping the things in a binder. I think that's what I do now if I had it. I haven't had it since grade 10. I know, that's weird, right? I just never ended up taking it afterwards. And either way, in grade 9, my science teacher was amazing, and he made us keep everything in a notebook. This is my grade 10 science notebook, not with that teacher, but it's with also another really good teacher. I've had amazing science teachers, but I've just never really, I don't know, I found that I didn't really need it for what I want to go into, and I wasn't the best at science either. Like, it was the one subject where I actually had to work really hard, and sometimes, even if I worked really hard, it didn't really pay off. But it's definitely something I'll look into and maybe do on my own time. So this was how I took my notes before in my science notebook. As you'll see, it's also the Cornell system, but it was very underdeveloped. Now I would probably keep them in a binder so that I can also add printed notes. And then for history, as you saw, grade 10 history was when this system underwent a lot of change. Since history is very lecture heavy, it's kind of the same thing I did with my politics class. I started off handwriting my notes and then I transitioned to typing them because I realized I was too slow to handwrite and I'd have to do it at home. And honestly, a huge tip for you guys, pick the system that you'd be able to not do anything at home for and still have a decent set of notes to study from. Because when it comes to notes, whatever you do at home should only be extra studying or review, with a few occasional exceptions of having to rework ideas or read ahead or catch up if you missed a class. So that's it. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I got this video done. It's one of my biggest flaws, I think. I've got quite a bit of a perfectionist in me, so I sometimes get scared to start huge tasks that I know I want to do really badly, but that I feel will never be perfect. But here it is, the Mistral Method. It was so fun to work on and to think about for the past 3 months, probably longer. And I realized, damn, this is one monster of a note system. But it's absolutely amazing and I'm so proud of it, and I really hope that you guys use it or get inspired by it. And if you do, let me know in the comments below. I absolutely love it when you guys comment and chat with me, so please do that. And also remember, when it comes to studying, more isn't necessarily better. A lot of people ask me about the time it takes to stay organized and whether that's an issue or not. And as I've come to realize more and more, being organized is what 80% of my success is attributed to. Sure, it takes a bit more time to get organized, but then your mind is organized too. And the task is easier to break down and do, or the test is easier to study for, because you've been studying for this whole time and filing things away in your brain properly this whole time. So you only need to review and not study when the test comes around. But if you're interested in more of this kind of stuff, let me know what specifically in the comments below you want to see, and I'll be sure to film a video about that as well. So thank you so much to all of you Mistral spirits for tuning in and watching. Oh my goodness, I'm so blown away by the support from you all, and I couldn't have asked for a better community to be a part of. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe and like and comment if you enjoyed. It helps me out a lot. And check out my blog and Instagram too if you like what I do and you want to keep updated with what I'm creating that's not on YouTube. Love you all so much. Bye-bye.